Everyone knows Union Pacific's Big Boy as the king of steam, but what if history forgot the true power champion? The Chesapeake and Ohio H-8 Allegheny unleashed a staggering 7,498 horsepower, 1,200 more than Big Boy, built to conquer the brutal Allegheny Mountains. For decades, its unrivaled strength remained hidden in the shadows. If Big Boy was not the most powerful, what made Allegheny so unstoppable? The answer rewrites everything you thought you knew about locomotive supremacy. Coal was the lifeblood of the Chesapeake and Ohio Railway, and the Allegheny Mountains stood as a proving ground. By the early 1940s, the Chesapeake and Ohio faced a relentless problem: how to move more coal, faster, over some of the steepest and most demanding railroad grades in America. The company's existing locomotives strained under the weight, forced to crawl up twisting tracks that climbed nearly 2,000 feet in barely a dozen miles. Efficiency wasn't just a goal, it was a necessity to keep pace with wartime industry and post-war demand. Chesapeake and Ohio management turned to Lima Locomotive Works for a solution that would reshape the limits of steam power, a search for unprecedented horsepower. In 1941, the first H-8 Allegheny thundered out of Lima Locomotive Works shops. Over the next 7 years, 60 of these giants would follow, each one a product of skilled hands and relentless engineering. The production run stretched from 1941 through 1948, marking one of the largest single orders for high-horsepower steam in history. These machines weren't built for headlines or records. They were built to move mountains of coal over the unforgiving Allegheny grades. Every Allegheny was a response to the real, daily demands of the railroad: longer trains, heavier loads, and the economic pressure to keep the Chesapeake and Ohio main line running at full throttle. From the shop floor in Lima to the dispatchers in Richmond, the mission was simple: outmuscle the mountains and keep the coal moving east. Lima's design team approached the Alleghenies' creation as a problem of raw physics. To generate more power than any locomotive before, they started with the boiler, a behemoth measuring 109 inches in diameter, making it the largest ever mounted on an American steam engine. This immense cylinder stretched over 23 feet from tube sheet to tube sheet, allowing for longer heat paths and greater steam production than its rivals. Inside, a dense array of fire tubes and superheater elements worked together, ensuring that every pound of coal delivered maximum energy to the cylinders. The firebox, the heart of any steam locomotive, demanded a new solution. The Alleghenies firebox measured 180 inches in length, with an added 118 inches of combustion chamber extending deep into the boiler's belly. To support this massive structure, Lima engineers introduced a 6-wheel trailing truck, a radical departure from the 4-wheel designs of earlier giants. This innovation distributed the weight of the firebox and allowed for a much larger grate area, giving the engine the ability to burn coal at rates that matched its enormous appetite for power. Every inch of the locomotive was built for strength and endurance. The locomotive alone weighed 751,830 pounds, with the tender bringing the total to 1,183,540 pounds. High-strength steel formed the boiler shell and firebox sheets, while nickel-steel alloys handled the relentless heat and pressure inside. The result was a machine that could sustain 265 pounds per square inch of steam pressure, feeding 4 massive 22.5 by 33-inch cylinders. These choices were not about excess. They were about meeting the relentless demands of the Allegheny grades, mile after punishing mile. In June 1950, the question of ultimate steam power moved from speculation to scientific measurement. Chesapeake and Ohio's H-8 Allegheny faced the dynamometer car, a rolling laboratory designed to record in real time the raw force delivered to the train. Gene Huddleston's research in C&O Power details what happened next. The Allegheny, loaded with a 160-car coal train, surged across the main line while the dynamometer's calibrated sensors tracked every pound of pull and every mile per hour. The result was not an estimate or a headline, but a hard number: 7,498 drawbar horsepower at 45 miles per hour. Sustained readings during these tests held between 6,700 and 6,900 horsepower at speed, with the dynamometer's chart recorder capturing the locomotive's performance mile after mile. The calculation was simple but unforgiving. Drawbar pull multiplied by speed, divided by 375. This is the same method used by Union Pacific for its Big Boy tests, ensuring a direct apples-to-apples comparison. Union Pacific's Big Boy, measured on its own dynamometer runs, reached a maximum of 6,290 horsepower at about 41 miles per hour. The difference, 1,200 horsepower, was not a marketing claim or a rounding error. It was the equivalent of adding the output of 2 modern sports cars to the train's drawbar. These numbers, drawn from instrumented tests and documented in railroad archives, settled the debate among engineers. The Alleghenies' 7,498 horsepower stands as the highest verified output ever recorded for a reciprocating steam locomotive. No other test, no other machine, has produced a higher figure under scientific scrutiny. On the main line, the Alleghenies' power wasn't just a number on a test sheet. It was muscle felt in every mile of mountain track. Crews assigned to these giants faced the daily reality of moving more coal faster than any railroad had managed before. Engineers brought a 160-car train, 14,100 tons of loaded hoppers, up from a dead stop. With the regulator open, the Allegheny clawed its way to 19 miles per hour in just 1 mile of track. 11 minutes later, the train was rolling at 29 miles per hour, still gathering speed, the exhaust hammering against the cold mountain air. On the toughest grades, the C&O paired Alleghenies front and rear, stretching their trains to 11,500 tons. The records show these double-headed monsters muscling up the long climb from Hinton, West Virginia, holding the throttle wide, boiler pressure steady, and speed unbroken as the tracks twisted and rose toward the summit. Even with worn drivers, a single Allegheny could deliver up to 119,500 pounds of starting tractive effort, enough to wrench a stalled coal drag into motion when lesser engines would spin helplessly. In the cab, engineers and firemen worked in a world of heat and vibration, reading the mountain by feel as much as by sight. The throttle was heavy, the reverser stiff, but the sense of command was real. One crew, one machine, and the weight of half a town's worth of coal behind them. Every successful run up the Allegheny grades was a test of steel, sweat, and the relentless application of power where it mattered most, out on the rails under the full load, with gravity always fighting back. Every mile of mountain railroad came at a price, measured not just in steel and sweat, but in raw resources. At full output, an Allegheny devoured 7 to 8 tons of coal and up to 14,000 gallons of water every hour. The tender behind it carried 25 tons of coal and 25,000 gallons of water, enough for only a few hours at peak performance before another stop. Feeding the firebox, an automatic stoker hurled 12.5 tons of coal per hour onto the grates, keeping the massive boiler alive. This relentless appetite demanded constant attention from maintenance crews, who faced a machine that was as complex as it was powerful. While the Alleghenies' power set records at speed, Union Pacific's Big Boy claimed a different crown, starting tractive effort. With 135,375 pounds of force, Big Boy could wrench the heaviest trains into motion. But it was the Allegheny that sustained higher power mile after mile. Union Pacific's Big Boy became a legend, not just for its size, but because the railroad made sure the world noticed. Publicity campaigns sent Big Boy across the West for photo opportunities, magazine covers, and even parades, cementing its place in popular memory. By contrast, the Chesapeake and Ohio Alleghenies worked in the shadows, their achievements buried in daily schedules and coal dust. The difference endures. 8 Big Boys were saved from the scrapper, and today number 4014 runs again after a multi-million-dollar restoration. Only 2 Alleghenies survive, number 1601 at the Henry Ford Museum and number 1604 at the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad Museum. Both silent, preserved indoors, their power remembered mostly by those who study the records rather than witness the roar firsthand. The C&O H-8 Allegheny produced a verified 7,498 drawbar horsepower, 1,200 more than the Union Pacific Big Boy, according to dynamometer car tests documented in Gene Huddleston's book C&O Power. These were scientific measurements taken in regular service, not estimates or promotional claims. Despite this achievement, only 2 of the 60 Alleghenies survive today, both preserved but permanently silent. The full details of every test run and the daily realities of maintaining these giants are not completely recorded, leaving some operational nuances lost to history. Yet the evidence is clear. Purpose-built for the Allegheny Mountains, these locomotives set the standard for steam power. Today, the Big Boy is more famous and still runs, but the Allegheny remains unmatched in verified horsepower. The record stands. C&O's Allegheny was, by every measured fact, the most powerful steam locomotive ever built.